Welcome to Slice of Lyme, a podcast by and for Lyme warriors, where we share truth, resilience, and hope, one episode at a time. We are not doctors, and this is not medical advice, just real stories and what's worked for us on our own journeys. Today's episode is brought to you by Tickmit. This eco-friendly and non-toxic reusable glove helps to find and remove loose ticks from pets and yourself. If you're hiking, walking, or just hanging out outside, Tickmit is a must. Use code SLICE, S-L-I-C-E, for 10% off.
Welcome back to Slice of Lyme. Today, Chrissy and I are going to be talking about mental health and the impact that Lyme disease, co-infections, and mold toxicity can have on mental health. This is our disclaimer and trigger warning that today's episode contains sensitive topics such as suicidal ideation. If you are experiencing a mental health emergency, suicidal ideation, or debilitating mental health symptoms, please contact your local emergency room, 911, or 988. With that being said, Chrissy, you have quite a journey with mental health through your Lyme journey. And so I wanted to start kind of with your experience, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. This is a topic I'm super passionate about. And to be quite honest, like when I post, let's say on social media, I always try to tag mental health or mental health awareness, because while I want to talk to the Lyme community, I also want to talk to those that are suffering with mental health challenges, because I always feel maybe there are people out there that may have underlying causes like Lyme and co-infections. They just don't know it. But yeah, so I would just say prior to Lyme, my second time, so the first time I didn't have any major mental health challenges. And I would say growing up, I didn't have anxiety or depression or suicidal ideation. And only started understanding what anxiety was postpartum with my first son. But after postpartum, I didn't experience that. So, after I gave birth to my second child, to my daughter, I had a lot of health challenges. And then I started experiencing snowy vision in the summer of 2023. It just was a symptom, and I thought, okay, I'll figure out why I'm having snowy vision, and I'll be fine. And then I started experiencing presyncope, and what I would feel is that like my heart would feel like it was skipping a beat, and that I would have to feel like I was going to pass out. And that really scared me because it was out of nowhere. At one point, I was holding my daughter and that happened, and I fell to the floor, and she was 10 months, and I thought I was going to hurt her. I started crying. She was crying. It was just like very scary. We called 911. And there was a series of me going to the ER and being dismissed. And I kept going, and my nervous system at that point was going into fight or flight. Like I started getting the vibrations in my spine. And I believe it was the third visit that I went to the ER, and the doctor there prescribed me Xanax and told me I need to see a neurologist. So that, I think, was the first indication of maybe being gaslit a bit, but that they were trying to say it was mental health and that I needed to just calm down. But at the time, I didn't really understand. Like, he prescribed me Xanax. I didn't take the Xanax, but I had the bottle. And I followed up with a neurologist, but my body at this point, I was tremoring. I had, my body was shaky, and, something was clearly wrong. So I went to the neurologist, and this neurologist, actually, my husband had broken his spine, a few of the vertebrae in his spine. So this neurologist saved my husband's life and made it so he wasn't a quadriplegic. And so we trusted this neurologist, went to this neurologist, and he basically said he wanted to test me for MS. So in the summer of 2023, he said, I'm experiencing symptoms of MS and we want to test for lesions. The problem, however, was that the MRIs were behind, so it was going to take months. So I think I saw him in July, and I didn't have an MRI scheduled until September. And I was like, what do I do? Because I'm experiencing these symptoms. I just started a new job. Like, what am I supposed to do? And he basically prescribed me an SSRI, and he said, take this and you should be feeling better. It should get your body out of fight or flight. I had never been on any SSRIs. And I remember asking the neurologist, like, well, can I get my body out of fight or flight the natural way? And he said, yeah, but it would take a really long time. So you probably should just try this SSRI. I remember I went a while without taking it because I really didn't want to. And then I remember talking to a friend who had said that she had fibromyalgia and they prescribed this particular SSRI for her fibromyalgia and that she was doing better. She still experienced symptoms, but it really helped. And so after talking to her, I guess I just thought, okay, maybe I'll do it. I started to experience more symptoms too. Like I started to have like joint pains in my hands and in my feet, on top of having my nervous system and tremors and all that just like setting off. And so I took the SSRI, and 3 days in, my pupils were incredibly dilated and I was like freaking out. I don't know what was going on, but I was like, freaking out. And I felt like something was wrong with my heart. I felt like I was like super jittery, like something was really, really wrong, almost like I was on some sort of a drug. And we go to the ER because I'm like, something's really wrong with me, you know? So we go to the ER and I remember the woman's like, can I take your blood? And I was like, no, you can't take my blood. There was something set off. I could not stay calm enough for someone to take my blood. It was almost like literally like I was on drugs. And end up going in there. They check my vitals, everything, and they're like, you're fine. Go home. So, okay, fine. I go home. But then that next day I had talked to my husband like I'm stopping. And he was like, you cannot stop. The doctor prescribed it. You have to take it. It's supposed to help you. So I took it for a few more days. And so I think it was like day 6 that I ended up trying to walk outside. I was stopped in my tracks and I felt like I couldn't move. And I called for my husband. I'm like, something's wrong. I feel like I can't walk. Something's wrong. So I went to sit down and I was like, get the blood pressure cuff. My blood pressure was spiking. I don't know what's going on. So we called 911 again. So this was probably like the 5th time or 6th time we had called an ambulance and 911. But so the EMT that day, I swear, saved my life. So she was like, I'm going to take you. There's 2 hospitals that are close near my house. And I had asked to go to this one hospital. And she was like, but every time you go, because she's now seen me multiple times in the ambulance. And she was like, but every time you go to this hospital, are they dismissing you? And I'm like, yeah, like they're giving me different pills, you know, and then they're telling me I'm fine and they're sending me home. And she said, if they dismiss you again, you need to go to this other hospital. She's like, I always tell my friends to go to the other hospital. Like the one you're going to is like basically not a good hospital. And how would I know that? But so this EMT is like, if you will take you to this one, but if you experience it again, do not go. So send me into this hospital and they're checking my vitals. And there was the head of the ER. And then there was a guy, another gentleman who was assisting the head of the ER. I think he was doing internship or whatever he was doing. And he was concerned. And he saw at that point that my walking, I started shuffling as I was walking. And so he wanted to run more tests. But the head of the ER came in and said, well, we're going to give you a COVID test. And I was like, but ma'am, I'm struggling, like my walking, something's going on with my walking. And she was like, yeah, we're giving you a COVID test. So I run a COVID test. I was negative. And the intern was like, I'm really sorry. You know, he was trying to say like, I realize there's something more to this, but he's following the direction of the head of the ER. So again, I was dismissed and I was sent home literally with nothing. You don't have COVID. You're fine. Go home. And that night I started having explosions in my chest. The only way I can explain it is I felt like explosions and then this trickling down feeling in my nervous systems. And at 4 a.m., I woke up my husband and I was like, I need to go to the hospital. I need to go to the ER. Something is really, really wrong with me. So he takes me to the hospital and
So he took you to the same hospital or the other one now?
he took me to the other one. He took me to the one that the EMT told me to take me to. He takes me there. And I was there by myself for a little bit because he was home with the kids and then he was coming back. But within a few hours, I completely lost my ability to walk. And they were lifting my legs up and they would drop. They were asking me to lift my legs. I couldn't lift my legs. So I'm laying in a bed. I can't lift my legs. Like I lost complete feeling. in my legs, and they had to walk me over to the bathroom. They had to assist me to go to the bathroom. Like my leg function was gone. And I remember crying to the ER nurse, ER doctor. And I said, like, if you send me home, I think I'm going to die, because I didn't know what was wrong. I couldn't walk. When I started to feel my hands clam up like this, something was really wrong. So while I was there, they said they're going to keep me overnight and they're going to do all kinds of scans. So CT scan, MRI. I asked to speak to infectious disease, the head of infectious disease. I asked for everything. They gave me an MRI, no lesions, no MS. CT scan was fine. Infectious disease came. He tested me with the Western blot, did not test for co-infections, and I failed the Western blot. And then a neurologist from the hospital came and said, we're going to diagnose you with FND, which is functional neurological disorder, which essentially is, we don't know what's wrong with your nervous system. There's clearly something wrong, but we can't figure it out because your scans look fine. There's no meningitis. Everything looks fine, but there's clearly something wrong. So you need to follow up with the head of functional neurological disorder, but he's basically wasn't free for 3 months. So we'll put you on the list and you'll see him in 3 months. And that was in September. So essentially what happened was I stopped taking the SSRI, and within 5 days, the function of my legs came back.
So, but they sent you home from the ER with this referral to the functional neurological doctor, even though you couldn't walk. They were just kind of like, he'll see you in a few months. Good luck.
Yeah. And I begged them to keep me at the hospital. So what happened was overnight, I didn't take the SSRI. And from that day to the next day, I was able to slowly shuffle again. They gave me a walker. I went home with a full-on walker. And they're like, well, you're regaining some function, so insurance isn't going to let you stay. And I begged them to let me stay. I was like clearly, even though I'm shuffling like I'm 90 years old, you know? And so in my head, I'm like, it's got to be this SSRI. It has to be. Though I believed I had Lyme disease, but I was dismissed. You don't have Lyme disease. It's something else. So here I am thinking, okay, I have FND. I was told that if I went to intense therapy and meditated, that I would be able to heal it. So the whole month of September, I was in 4 to 5 days of therapy. So I was in talk therapy, I was in EMDR, and I was in hypnotherapy. And every day I would do one of those, thinking, okay, if I just get all this therapy out and I cry my way through all my trauma, I'll be fine. At the same time, my brother is a veterinarian, and he had told me about the 10x genetic testing. And he said to me, I think you should get it. Just check and see what your genetics are. Like, maybe there's something going on there and you could see what's going on. So I did. And that's something that I recommend for everybody, whether it's through 23andMe or this 10x genetics study. It was $500, but I did it. And what came back, which is very interesting, is that I have the MTRR genetic mutation, but I also have the COMT genetic mutation. And COMT, I am a slow burner of serotonin. And the receptor that SSRIs work on is your serotonin receptor. And so when you have a buildup of serotonin that your body can't, you're a slow mover of it, your body can't get rid of, you go into serotonin syndrome. Mm-hmm. And so as I was going through all of this therapy, I went back to the original neurologist, who was like, I'm not prescribing you anything else. You don't have MS. Basically, good luck. Go see the head of FND. And I said, could this have been serotonin syndrome? And he, well, you didn't have a fever and this doesn't happen, And then when I saw the cardiologist, he was like, that sounds like serotonin syndrome. And I was like, well, the neurologist says it's not. And he was like, they could say it's not. They could say it is. The symptoms sound like serotonin syndrome. So I don't know. I guess the jury's out there if I had serotonin syndrome or if I just had an adverse reaction to this SSRI. But at this point, I now knew that I had the COMT gene mutation and that I will no longer take something that is going to affect the serotonin receptors. And I'm just putting this out there for people who are suffering from mental health situations and maybe went into serotonin syndrome. or aren't sure if they should take a particular medication, that you should get genetic testing before you try. Because if you are a slow burner of serotonin like myself, you could really hurt yourself if you are put on something that could affect your serotonin receptors.
Yeah.
So just throwing that out there.
Let me jump in as well and say that I've done the 23andMe like genetics raw data test, whatever, and you like send it to another company to analyze. And I have the COMT as well. But so those tests are helpful, but also there's a test called a GeneSight, and you can take that test and it will tell you like what medications work well with your body. So there are like tests that you can take that will tell you like what psychiatric medicine could be a good fit based on your, I think GeneSight is a saliva test, so I assume it would be gene related as well.
I love that. I think I might try that too. Just for future reference, you never know. I never thought I'd have to be on any kind of psychiatric medication, but you never know what could happen and where life will take you. So that's awesome information. I'll probably look into that. Yeah. So essentially, I was doing all this mental health work, but I was getting more sick. And mental health work being EMDR and hypnotherapy. The one thing that I would say it helped me with was because of what happened with the SSRI. I was afraid to ingest anything in my body. I had a deathly fear that if I ingested anything, supplement wise, prescription wise, food wise, that I hadn't had for a while or had never had before, that it could cause an adverse reaction again and I'd end up in the ER or potentially dead. I would say hypnotherapy more than anything helped with was overcoming that fear, which I'm so grateful for, because we know what I ended up getting, and you have to take certain antibiotics or supplements. So I overcame that fear, which was great. But so anyway, for the whole month, I did all of this therapy and I was getting sicker and sicker. And I ended up getting these like big swollen lymph nodes, and I started to feel really ill. And I don't know why. I think intuitively, I just thought I must have Epstein-Barr virus. I don't know, like in my head, it like popped into my head, like maybe Epstein-Barr virus. Anyway, I ended up going to the naturopath that I initially worked with when I had Lyme the first time. And I met with him and we started working through the Epstein-Barr virus. Now, when I was taking supplements for Epstein-Barr virus and I was also doing Rife treatments, at a certain point, I started having weird mental health issues. And it felt like almost like my brain was like shattered at one point, and I was feeling very disconnected from self. And the naturopath had said, yeah, that can do that to you. I'll tell you, when I was healing from Epstein-Barr virus, after I did it, because he said Epstein-Barr virus can go after your nervous system. I didn't know this. After treating it, all my tremors went away. So it definitely was attacking my nervous system, but it was affecting my mental health too. And I remember when it first happened, I was so freaked out. I didn't know what to do. I remembered I had the Xanax. So I ended up taking out that Xanax that I was prescribed in July in October. And I think I maybe took like half of a pill. I don't remember what milligram it was. So I took it and it helped calm me down. And then I remembered I was running low on them because there was only a short amount. And I was like, well, this is helping me. This is helping me as I'm healing from Epstein-Barr virus. Let me call my PCP. At that time, I didn't have a psychiatrist. See if my PCP could prescribe me more. So I called her and she said to me, well, what dosage do you want? And I said, I don't know. You prescribe it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not, basically I'm not drug seeking, but it's helping me. I'm going through a lot. Like, she knew I couldn't walk. I mean, I was in and out of her office all the time because I wanted to follow up with her because I didn't know what was going on and extra tests and all that. So she prescribed me 0.25 milligrams once a day. Well, turns out I needed more than that. But I didn't understand this. So here's another caveat that I didn't know because I was new to the mental health situation. It's a benzodiazepine. And a benzodiazepine is very strict with the prescription. You cannot overdo your prescription, right? I didn't know that. So she gave me a 0.25. Well, then I have a 0.25 in the morning and a 0.25 in the evening. But I saw I had 3 refills. And so with most prescriptions, you have a refill, you call, you do your refill, and that's it. Well, I was running low and I called to do my refill, and my pharmacy said, it's a benzodiazepine. It's highly regulated. We cannot give you a refill. We need your doctor to approve it. So I was like, okay. Again, I had no idea how all of this worked. So I called my doctor's office and I said, hey, can you please approve the refill for me? And they ended up calling me back and they said, she's not going to refill it. She could get her license removed because you overdid it. You're going to have to go to the local psych ward and have them refill it. I was like, okay, sure. So I ended up going to the psych ward of the hospital that had consistently dismissed me. But the reason why I went to that one was that they were the ones that prescribed me the Xanax in the first place.
Yeah, so this was the first hospital.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I ended up going back there and, you check into the ER first, or that's how I did it. I remember I told the nurse the whole story and then the doctor came in and I told her the story and she said, listen, we don't just give out prescriptions. You would have to stay here for 3 days. You'd have to do the overnight, facility. You'd have to stay for 3 days and we'd evaluate you. And at that point, we would decide if you get a prescription, but we don't give out prescriptions like that. So I had to wait in this room. I just sat on the bed, staring at a white wall for 3 hours. And I said, then just discharge me. Just discharge me. It's fine. I'll figure it out. So we leave. And I was like, well, that was a big waste of time. And I got to at least understand what the inside of a psych ward is at this hospital, which was not fun. They're behind the glass walls and it's like,
like a fishbowl.
It's like a fishbowl. It's so uncomfortable, and I'm like, I'm just like a woman that's struggling, it was just, yeah, I don't know. It wasn't great. So, I end up coming out and then I called my PCP's office and this got a little intense. So I called and her assistant picked up and I said, hey, and I said, it's, my name. And the manager said, I know who you are. And I said, okay, well, I'm calling because I need an appointment. And she's like, well, I know you think you're going to get these drugs, but you're not. We already told you you're not going to get these drugs. So this was on speakerphone. So my husband and my mother-in-law heard it. And I was like, well, you guys told me to go to the psych ward and I did. And they referred me back to you. So I need an appointment. And she's like, well, just so you know, we're going to call every pharmacy in the area to make sure that you're not getting Xanax from other pharmacies because you're out here trying to drug seek. And I started crying and I was like, I just want you to know that I have never, ever been a drug seeker. I have never been on Xanax until this point. Something serious is going on and the Xanax at least is calming me down and I'm just looking for help.
So I'm fired up for you, but
oh, it was horrible. That was a horrible situation. I had to talk to my doctor about it and I made a complaint because that was awful.
Well, there's 2 points I want to make. And the first one is that the fishbowl thing in the mental health aspect of the ER is designed to keep people safe who are actively a threat to themselves or others. That way they can be seen and they don't have things that can hurt themselves. And so while I know it probably wasn't a fitting setting for you, it does serve a purpose for people who really, really need it. So I do want to push some credit over there where credit is due. But I also want to say, when you ran through this first round of Xanax, were you just doubling the dose? And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but were you just taking 2 a day instead of 1 a day? Did you take the whole bottle in one day? Why were they so mad?
Well, so a 0.25 can come as a 0.25 okay. Or you get a 0.5, I think, if I'm remembering. I'm not sure. But I was taking a 0.25 in the morning to calm me down. The problem with Xanax is it has 6 hours on it, and then it wears off. And so it doesn't last for 12 hours. So even if I took it at night, it wouldn't last me the full 24 hours. So once it wore off, all of that anxiety was rushing back. I was very like uncomfortable in my own skin at this point. So I was doubling it up. And honestly, I think I was taking the dose that the ER had given me, which was the 0.5.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think it was a problem to double up on the dose and I was taking the same dose the ER gave me. But I didn't know that a benzodiazepine, you couldn't do that. Like some other things that you're given, you could like at liberty kind of, okay, I need the 2, whatever today, I don't need tomorrow, whatever it is. Right. But so I wasn't completely out right away. Like I saw, that I still had some left. And so at that point, then I was breaking it up, like doing the math. If I could just make it to this day, I'll do this amount of Xanax. Like I was like, being a little nutty, but I just felt like I needed something to help my body calm down. Again, I didn't really know exactly what was going on and why the anxiety was so bad and my mental health was so bad at this point. But I knew I was treating the Epstein-Barr, and so I think it set something off as I was like trying to like kill off the Epstein-Barr virus. At that point, I talked to my husband and I was like, we need to find a psychiatrist. I need a psychiatrist ASAP. We literally, I'm not exaggerating, that week after that experience happened, called 40 psychiatrists. 40.
Wow.
This was September. Most of them were like, yeah, we have availability in January. A bunch didn't even call back. It was just messages. And, at that time, I said to my husband, I'm like, I mean, maybe there's a mental health crisis going on that psychiatrists are just that booked. But if somebody was really going through something like me, the fact that you can't get a psychiatrist, that seems like a problem in itself. There should be like availability to find somebody quickly, because especially if you're going through something pretty serious. So anyway, I had an appointment with the PCP. They made an appointment for me. They said she won't give you Xanax, but maybe she could prescribe you something else. And we found, my husband, I don't know how, again, this is by the grace of God, he found one psychiatrist who was willing to take me the next day after my PCP appointment. So like I said, I was like breaking up the Xanax, I was like kind of detoxing off of it, even though I had only been on it for a little while, but like, what can last me through Thursday and into Friday to see this psychiatrist. So I went to PCP. She prescribed me some other things that she thought could help. But I saw the psychiatrist the next day, and he was like, I'm going to diagnose you. I understand about Epstein-Barr virus and it could do this stuff to you. And he said, I'm going to diagnose you with an anxiety disorder. And basically your PCP just misprescribed you. And really you need 0.75 milligrams a day. You need one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one in the evening. And that should carry you over because it has a 6-hour shelf life. And so at that point, that's what I was on. I also did not understand how addictive Xanax was at the time. So by the time December came of 2023, like I said, treating Epstein-Barr virus, my tremors had gone away. I still had vibrations in my spine, but the external, like the hands, the feet, all that was doing better. I still had other symptoms like my vision and ringing in the ears. I still had other symptoms, but I was feeling a lot better than I had been feeling. And so what happened was my period was coming, and my vibrations started setting off like really intensely during my period, which now I know, like we know you can get flares from Lyme during your period because of the hormones. But they started setting off really badly. And then all of a sudden I started out of nowhere getting suicidal ideation. And I was like, I feel like I'm going to kill myself. Like I was crying that day, and I was feeling so like ill. Like I wanted to kill myself. And I told my husband, I don't want to be in the house with the kids. If I am having these thoughts, I don't want to be near the kids. I don't want the kids to see me this way. So I ended up that day going to my in-laws' house, and I called my therapist, and my therapist talked me down from like all of the emotions. And also did some Reiki. She does Reiki. So, and then I like calmed down and relaxed, and I stayed at my in-laws that whole day that I was feeling it. And then the next day I got my period and I was feeling a lot better, and the suicidal ideation calmed down. But it was the first real experience of I legitimately feel like I want to kill myself. And it was out of nowhere. I can't explain it. So I went back to the naturopath and I was like, I know we're saying Epstein-Barr is cured, but something is still wrong. And we need to figure it out. So he was running tests. One of the naturopaths, there's two of them, was running tests. And we were talking, but he wasn't paying attention to the test that he was running because they do bioenergetics, which is they can read the energy of your body through holding these metal poles, essentially. And he wasn't paying attention. And guess what he ran? He ran the bans for Lyme and Bartonella. And because most people that go to see him are there for Lyme disease. And so he pulled it up and he's like, oh, sorry, like we don't pull Lyme for you. Like that's weird. But I was like, there's so many bands here. Like, what is that? And he was like, yeah, most people with Bartonella have this many bands. And I was like, well, what is that? You know, like, why do I have that many bands for Bartonella? Like, what is going on? So I ended up going to see the other naturopath and he did his bioenergetics and he was like, I see Babesia and Bartonella here. And I think it's affecting your nervous system. First time I ever heard of Babesia and Bartonella. I had no idea those were co-infections of Lyme. So here's where it gets really intense for me is 2024 for my mental health. Not that initially what happened wasn't intense, but it gets even more intense. Okay. More intense. Gosh. So the main naturopath gave me artemisinin, 400 milligrams for the day. And I already knew I was sensitive to medication. So instead of taking the 4 pills he prescribed a day, I took half the dose. And then he went on vacation. I took half the dose of artemisinin. And oh my goodness, it set off. So all of the symptoms that were hiding from Babesia inside my body, when I took that artemisinin, I herxed so badly that I started getting night sweats. I started having day sweats. I started having weird pains. I was having like all kinds of weird symptoms that were Babesia related. Chest pains in my ribs, pains in my back, ringing in my ears, heart palpitations. So I herxed the first day. And then I did it again the next day because I'm like, oh, maybe it's just a one-time thing. You know, I did it again the next day and I herxed again. And at this point, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sick. I freaked out. And I looked up a Lyme literate doctor and I went and I looked, where's this Lyme literate doctor located? Okay, located out of state, but close enough that my husband can drive me. So I called the Lyme literate doctor and was like, I need to see you. And they could take me that week. So I go in because now I think what I have is beyond what the naturopath can help me with because I was so sick at that point. Go in to see the Lyme literate doctor. And the Lyme literate doctor, after I explained all of my symptoms, he basically said to me, listen, you have 2 options. One is you could get tested for IGeneX. Now, most Lyme literate doctors, as we know, are thousands of dollars just for the first consultation. So I'm already spending thousands of dollars just to see this Lyme literate doctor. The option was I can then spend another $3,000 on a full IGeneX panel, or because of the symptoms that I was experiencing, get a clinical diagnosis, take the Western blot again, which we know I failed, get that failed blood test, but be treated anyway because the symptoms matched up with Babesia. So at that point, that doctor said, you have Lyme and Babesia. And what I want to give you is this anti-malarial. I don't know if I should say the name of the anti-malarial because it works for some people. It doesn't work for others.
I think I was probably on the same thing, but
yeah. So it works for some, does not work for others. There are side effects to it. And this anti-malarial, I think, is given to you if you go to Africa as a preventative measure. And so, but there is a warning that some people can have a bad reaction to it. So I said, I'm going to save the $3,000. I'm not going to spend, $6,000 or whatever it is for a test and one visit. I'm going to save my money. And so I got the clinical diagnosis and I got the prescription. Now the prescription was obviously for doxycycline, which I had had before in my 20s. So I knew, okay, I know doxycycline. I should be fine with doxy. But this other drug, I was given a pediatric dose of
for the
this.
anti-malarial.
For the anti-malarial, because the doctor said he starts low and then works his way up. So you work your way up. And I was like, great. So I took the childhood dose, and it took about 4 days. And after the fourth day, I hurt so bad that I couldn't get out of bed. My whole body was in pain. I could not get out of bed. Then I called and was like, okay, we'll get off for a few days and go back on. So I go back on. And that's when some severe mental health stuff started happening. I started getting images in my head, and they were images that I could not get out of my head. So it was just replaying in my head over and over and over again with nothing else. It was just that. And it was images of me stabbing myself to death. And it was like so messed up. And I had insomnia. Night sweats so bad that I was soaking through the sheets, that I would put a towel down. I would soak through the towel. And such bad insomnia that I was up and down and up and down. And at this point, the psychiatrist was like, take another Xanax in the middle of the night. So I had myself on this structured, like, I'm now at 1 milligram because every 6 hours I'm going to do it. So it'd be like 9 to 3 to 9 to 3. So, I would like have the alarm going off at 3 a.m. so I could take my Xanax. And I remember crying on the floor saying, like, I don't want to kill myself. I'm scared. I don't want to kill myself. I don't know why my brain is like telling me that I do. Like, I am so disturbed by the mental images that are in my brain. And I refused to go downstairs into the kitchen because I didn't want to be near knives, because deep down inside, I knew that I didn't want to kill myself, but something was going on in my brain that made me see that I did. It was so disconnected, like my brain and my inner being. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that doctor, we called and we went in to see that doctor and visit. I was literally mentally disturbed by it and went to the office, and I had said, like, this is what's happening. And he started cracking jokes and basically said two things. One, you have the option of getting pregnant. And if you get pregnant, your immune system will help fight it. And, you'll be feeling good for a good 9 months until you give birth. And then we'll have to come back to this. Or you could get a straitjacket and just keep taking the medicine, but just wear a straitjacket so you don't do anything to yourself. And like, he was being tongue in cheek. And I just remember feeling like I was like gonna die inside, like crying inside, not literally dying, but I was crying inside. Like, how could you be so insensitive? Yeah, it was crushing, because here I am saying that something's going on. I'm having images of stabbing myself to death. I'm so concerned, and you're laughing that I should get a straitjacket, and then proceeded to like Google Halloween costume straitjackets.
This was the Lyme literate doctor you had seen who started you on the anti-malarial.
Mm-hmm. And then said, wouldn't that be so funny if for your son that you were in a straitjacket for Halloween, ha ha ha, and then turned it around and was like, here, you can get them. Look at the straitjackets you can get. Wouldn't that be so funny? And I remember leaving his office and I was crying, and I got into the car with my husband and I was just like, I need a different doctor. I can't keep seeing this person. That is the most insensitive thing that a doctor could say to me. And while I'm explaining that I'm having suicidal ideation and like making light of it, and his point was like, well, everyone goes through that. You just ride the wave of it. And I was explaining it wasn't a wave, it was constant. It wasn't like, oh, I'm getting some suicidal ideation and then it goes away. It was just this constant image that was just so disturbing. So I don't think he was understanding that I was having another side effect. It wasn't me herxing from the medicine. It was a side effect of the medicine. So there's two different things. And I hope for whoever's listening that you can understand that like sometimes it's a herx, and a herx, you ride the wave.
Mm-hmm.
but a herc shouldn't make you have a continuous symptom like that, and or make you have images of wanting to unalive yourself. I would say you should switch your medication immediately.
I mean, how crushing, how humiliating, how dismissive. Like, it's not and never has been and never will be something to joke about ever under any circumstance. Like, I just cannot. Yes, a herx is like a kind of, I would say, like, you could probably describe it in better terms if if I spent more time thinking about it, but like a temporary flu sort of, right? Like, it's here and then it'll go away. Like, a side effect is something that's like here and then like you need to treat. And so it is different.
So I ended up leaving this doctor's office. I needed a new doctor. I had found through my own research a doctor's office in the area and booked out an appointment, but it was 3 weeks out. So I kept this doctor, the current doctor, just to have until I could begin with the new doctor, just in case. I started getting so sick that and also suicidal, that my family stepped in and they had nurses in my house 24/7 helping me take care of myself and eat and make sure if I could try to at least walk a little bit, like I could barely walk up the block. I had severe knee pain, and but my mental health was so bad. I was essentially like room bound, not completely bed bound, but essentially room bound. And so the Lyme litter doctor, the one that was making jokes about my mental health, with my psychiatrist talked. And it was essentially that maybe we need to get her mental health right before we can continue treatment. Because I also had tried the doxycycline, and the doxycycline I had no problems with before, but the doxycycline, that caused me to herc so bad that the room was not spinning, but the room was like, that was like shaking. And they had to give me something to sedate me after I took doxycycline. So just realized like everything was just setting me off. And so my psychiatrist at this point wants to prescribe me antipsychotics.
And you're still on the Xanax at this time too.
Xanax is the one thing that was holding me together. So again, I know you don't want to be on benzodiazepines for a long time, but it was the one thing that was helping me with my insomnia, helping me with the anxiety of everything, like keeping my body calm. Again, it was only 1 milligram. I know people can be prescribed way more than 1 milligram, and I say only 1 milligram. I know, everything's relative, but that was helping me. And so he's prescribing me antipsychotics. At the same time, I also went to see a different naturopath. So I went to see a different naturopath, and I signed up for a different LLMD. So I'm trying the antipsychotics. I tried about 4 or 5 different antipsychotics. And what would happen was I would try the first one, and after about 4 days, I would have something. So I'd have like severe heart palpitations or something that I was having adverse reactions to the antipsychotics at this point. Now, the images of me stabbing myself to death went away because I stopped the anti-malarial. But my mental health at this point was declining so quickly, but my body was also declining very quickly. So everything at the time was just like closing in on me. And again, I think at the time, my psychiatrist thought it was psychological. I don't know if everyone really believed that it was fully my body also shutting down. And so I tried about 4 or 5, but in the meantime, I saw it was an osteopath and a naturopath, and they gave me this like full panel of testing through, I believe it was through Quest. And what came back, again, I was negative for Lyme and co-infections, but what was positive were viruses. So I was still positive for Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, HHV6. I was also positive for chlamydia pneumonia. I never even heard of it, but it actually affects your lungs. So I had a host of viruses. I'm missing one off the top of my head, but I said mycoplasma, right? Mycoplasma pneumonia. So I had a host of viruses that were attacking my body. Okay. And this is before I got my official blood diagnosis of with the Lyme and co-infections. So I remember coming back and talking to my psychiatrist and just saying that the naturopath and osteopath think that I also have Lyme and co-infections. But, I have all these viruses. And he was like, I don't know why you keep looking for people to validate you with Lyme. So at that point, I was like, oh my God. Like ding, ding, ding in my head. Oh my God, my psychiatrist doesn't believe I have Lyme and co-infections. He just gaslit me. He thinks this is a mental disorder. So because I didn't have the blood work to prove it, I had a bioresonance scan, I had a clinical diagnosis, but I didn't have that blood work. All at this point I had was blood work on viruses, which those viruses alone can impact your health. And let me add that when you get Lyme and when you have Lyme and, co-infections, all that, it can cause all these viruses to come out of dormancy. So not only are you fighting the Lyme, but you're also fighting the viruses, the bacteria, the parasite, the viruses too. So it's just like an overload on your body.
Right.
So anyway, I remember taking a call with my new LLMD's office. And this is where there's a lot of layers to what had happened. We talked to the new LLMD's office and they said, we don't give that anti-malarial out of our office because of the known side effects. And that mental health thing that happened, like that's a known side effect. And that,
Really?
yep. And the doctor that prescribed that to you should have told you that.
So I knew that, and I don't want to take away too much time from your story, but I knew that the anti-malarial could cause like nightmares, but not like the mental health side effect you were talking about, because I think we were probably taking the same anti-malarial. But I took it for 2 rounds of treatment and I never knew. So that's interesting.
Well, that's why for some people it's fine, and for other people it's not. It's an adverse reaction.
But everyone should be aware that that's a potential.
It's a potential, and that office does not use that anti-malarial.
Wow.
Yeah. So we talked about that I was having obviously issues with my body, but also issues with my mental health. And at this point, the antipsychotics were making me sicker. And we threw out there my family and even myself. I was questioning this, like, do I just put myself into a larger mental health facility? Because I kept taking these antipsychotics and being sick, and I kept getting sicker and sicker. And there's nurses in the house, and like I have 2 small kids. My daughter was a year old, and my son was 4. And it's like, do I keep doing this in front of them? Do I keep going through all this in front of them? It's very disturbing to see your mommy so sick. And like, I barely saw my kids. I would see them in the morning to say good morning and at night, but I didn't even have the energy to like be around my kids, which was probably the most depressing part about all of this, So we had thrown it out there that maybe I go to a mental health facility. And so in talking to this new LLMD's office, they said that we've had a bunch of people that this has affected their brain and their nervous system, and they've gone to the mental health facility and they have gotten treated. And Lyme is actually a slow growing vector borne illness. And so Lyme replicates every 28 days. And so if all you have is Lyme, so at this point, they didn't know if I had co-infections, right? Again, no blood work to show it. So if all you have is Lyme and you go away for a little bit, we don't have to worry about it replicating in your body. You'll be okay. And when you come out, we can treat you. So like, don't worry about it. I had the IGeneX test in already. So when I met with the osteopath and the naturopath, they also did an IGeneX test when my family stepped in to help me. But that takes like 3 weeks to get. So we didn't have answers at that point as to what else would show up positive. So they had said, it's okay if you go to the mental health facility. And I remember I was debating, and 2 things that happened. One was, I was talking to friends and they were like, oh, do you remember? So where I grew up, one of my close friends was best friends with Allie Hilfiger. And my friend was like, well, have you read her book? And I was like, no, I didn't read her book. She had Lyme and she went to a mental health facility. And it was the one I was debating to go to. And part of me was, there's a stigma. Like, I'm going to a mental health facility. Like, what is everyone going to think about me? This is so crazy. I never thought in my life I'd be at a mental health facility. But after understanding that someone I knew had gone for Lyme disease specifically, I guess in my head, I was like, okay, maybe I don't have to worry about the stigma. Like, it's okay to do it. And let me put this out there. If you are debating and you don't know what to do, I highly recommend going, because I actually overall had a good experience. But anyway, I was put on this other antipsychotic. I'm not going to again say the name. This was the last round of antipsychotics that I went on. I went on this antipsychotic, and again, I was within like 3 or 4 days. I don't remember all the details of it, but I remember waking up and I felt like a zombie, like a complete zombie. And I remember I didn't even want to get out of bed. I was like, I don't care if I defecate on myself right now. I don't care. Like, I have no mental will to want to even use the bathroom. I had said to someone in the house, like, if there was a gun in the house, I would blow my brains out. I literally had just lost like all mental capacity at that point. It was pretty horrible. And I remember calling the psychiatrist and saying, there's something off with this antipsychotic. Like, I haven't been feeling like I want to go in the bathroom on myself, like that. I don't even care if I go to the bathroom. And he calls back and he's like, well, I talked to the rep and the rep said this doesn't happen.
So
Again,
surely that's not the case for you, right?
again, yeah, again, the rep, who's probably not experienced a lot of people who are having issues, but someone who's young and doesn't have experience with all of this is like, oh no, that's not a problem. That doesn't happen. Okay. Well, I got off of it and I was fine to use the bathroom again. So I was having so many side effects, but that was the straw that broke the camel's back, where I was like, I can't keep doing this in my home with 2 small kids. I can't be feeling this way in front of babies. Like, this is just not healthy for them. And so I made the choice to go to this mental health facility. And when I got there, they had diagnosed me not only anxiety, but a depressive disorder due to a medical condition, and also PTSD after all that I had already been through with this, with my health.
So can we, sorry, so this kind of started in the summer of 2023. When did you check yourself in?
March of 2024.
So, okay, so this had been less than a year. All of this had happened.
In less
Wow.
than a year.
Okay.
And yeah, I think everything got exacerbated with my health when I had that issue with the SSRI, because it was something traumatic that triggered my body to go into I thought I was going to die. I felt the feeling of death, and my body was shutting down. I think it just allowed all of these, everything to just, if it was already coming out of hiding, to just bam, hit my system harder than it would have hit. And I think that had that not happened with the SSRI, it wouldn't have been as extreme. But I do feel that issue with the SSRI just like triggered so much in my body. But anyway, I went to the mental health facility. And when I got there, one of the first things that they said to me was like, who would ever put you on Xanax? That is the worst drug you could ever be on. Like, who would make such a decision? That's horrible. So their goal was to get me off benzodiazepines. It didn't completely work, but they switched me from Xanax over to Klonopin, which is 12 hours. And when I switched over, I actually decreased back down in dosage. So I'm under a milligram on the Klonopin, but the Klonopin actually, it lasts longer. So it's not every 6 hours. I'm like, where's my Xanax? I need my Xanax to calm me down. Like, my body stopped having that severe reaction. So that was good. And then after that, they immediately wanted to send me to this, like, the outpatient living. And I was like, no, you cannot send me to the outpatient living. Like, I want to be on a mood stabilizer. I'm here to try medications that are going to help me. Because at that point, I was also crying every night. Why is my life like this? I can't believe my life is like this. I can't believe I lost everything. I don't even see my kids. Like, it was depressive disorder due to a mental health or mental uh, health condition. So I asked to be on a mood stabilizer, and then I still needed help with insomnia. And so they tried a couple of different things. One of the medications they tried, I went to sleep and I woke up and my whole right arm was numb. And I was like, I think I'm having a reaction. And I remember the psychiatrist saying to me, well, we also believe you might have Lyme, right? And that's something Lyme can do to your body. So we're not sure, is it the medication or is it the Lyme? So I switched over. They put me on gabapentin, which helps your nervous system. And it happened again with gabapentin. And then I realized, oh, this is the Lyme. I can't feel my full right arm because of the Lyme, or I'd go in the shower and I'd come out, my full body would shake for like 2 hours from the hot to cold sensitivity just from a shower. And at this point I had lost 17 pounds. Like I was pretty sick. But anyway, while I was there, guess what happens? The IGeneX test came back, and it came back that I had Lyme, but I also had Babesia, and I had an acute babesiosis infection. And so that LLMD's office called the psychiatrist and said she needs to get on medication, antibiotics and antimalarial immediately. So at that point, the floodgates open like everyone can believe me. I'm not crazy. This stuff is messing with me, my physical health, my mental health, and all these things that we're trying that aren't working. Clearly, it's not working because it's a blood-borne parasite, right? That is going after my body. So I just felt so much relief when I got that diagnosis because I felt like, okay, I can be believed now. So they started me on azithromycin and atovaquone. And the azithromycin and atovaquone combo really started helping me. The typical dosage is 10 days, but they had said they'll keep me on for 30 days. So they kept me on for 30 days. Now I stayed in the mental health facility in the housing unit. The main house is basically like there's 8 people living in there, and we do therapy all day long. And I was in the PTSD program, and but you get to like go do things on campus. So I would go to acupuncture and cranial sacral therapy, and the acupuncture was helping my nervous system a lot. So that's where I got back into acupuncture, and she specifically does it for mental health and the nervous system. So it was definitely helping me a lot. But I was treating and for the 30 days. And then when I got off the 30 days, they wanted to put me on doxycycline again for the Lyme. So we're going to treat the Babesia first and then the Lyme. When I got off the atovaquone and azithromycin, it was a 5-day break. I had to take a 5-day break before I went on the doxy. And within those 5 days, I went into a catatonic like state.
And were you still at the mental hospital?
I was still at the mental health hospital, and they were observing me. And the one psychologist was like, I have never seen anyone look that way. She said, you looked gray and you were just staring at walls. And I couldn't communicate. I would just cry because I wanted to talk, but I couldn't talk. And he had said, I've never seen anyone look like that except for my friend who was suffering with a brain tumor. And as soon as I went back on the doxy on medication, I started being able to communicate again. And so that had happened to me a few times when I got off medication and I went back on medication. Let me say one more thing. When I got to the mental health facility, serendipitously, the woman in admissions was like, oh, you have Lyme? You need to call this psychiatrist. She works with people with Lyme. She was here. Every time people would come into this mental health facility, she would test them for Lyme because she had Lyme, and she believed that everyone that walked into a mental health facility should be tested for Lyme and co-infections. So she's like Lyme, basically a Lyme literate psychiatrist. So while I was in there, I told my husband, I was like, please call her, get in touch with her, tell her I want her to be my psychiatrist. She'll believe me. She'll know what to do, whatever. And so he did, and she offered to take me. So I switched psychiatrist to someone, and I still have her, that believes me, has been through a herx, that understands a flare, that understands. She's told me before, like she's never seen worse depression than someone who suffers from Lyme disease. So she just gets it and is very supportive. But so what happened was they put me on doxy, and I herxed really badly, like mental health herxing. And so she called my Lyme litter doctor, and she had said, and this at this point I had gotten out of the mental health facility, and I was doing OTP, which is outpatient therapy, for about 9 weeks. And you do like group therapy, but it's through Zoom. But she had told my LLMD that I needed to stay on that azithromycin atovaquone combo for 4 months. So I stayed on it for 4 months. It ended up destroying my GI tract. But the point I want to make about that and what happened after I got off, I ended up getting off because it destroyed my GI tract, and they had to test me for C. diff and all kinds of stuff. But I was still having nervous system dysregulation, and I was still having neuropsych issues. And part of it was I was having really bad derealization.
Mm-hmm.
So it just felt like I could look in the mirror and not really recognize myself, or I was in my world, but I didn't recognize my world. It wasn't my world. It wasn't really my reality. It was like an alternate world that I was in. Like I didn't feel grounded in my body. Though I was doing better than I was, right? So I was improving, but like the derealization was still pretty bad. And I couldn't obviously leave the house. I could now like walk up and down my stairs and go to the bathroom or whatever. I could do things within my home and in the presence of the small little circle of my home. But I tried to go to lunch with a friend and I couldn't. Like after an hour, I was like, I gotta go. Like I was like panicking. So the derealization was really bad. So at that point, talked to the LLMD's office and they were like, listen, I think we need to retest you because this sounds like Bartonella. And if you remember, initially, the first naturopath with the bioresonance was like, you have Bartonella, but it didn't show up on the lab work. The Babesia did. And Bartonella can be very stealthy. So they retested me. And then he also said, we want to test you for mycotoxins and mold because, that also will prevent you from healing. So did all the tests, the heavy metal test. I was okay, though I was a little deficient in some things, but nothing crazy. Had mold toxicity, which can also affect your mental health. But guess what showed up after treating for 4 months? Bartonella. And so after that, the treatment that I've been doing since then is a combination of the artemisinin, which initially I had that horrible reaction to, but artemisinin, which kills off the parasites, but also has properties against Bartonella, so Babesia and Bartonella, as well as tetracycline, which has properties against the Lyme and the Bartonella. So I'm doing a combo of that with other herbs that kind of go after everything. I've also started ivermectin, but I've a combo of medications that have helped me. And quite frankly, like I don't cry every night anymore. I'm not constantly asking myself why I found radical acceptance in like what's happened and the fact that I'm meeting myself where I am and that I am going to heal and I'm getting better and I'm finding more nervous system regulation. I'm not in survival mode anymore. I don't have derealization anymore, though the snowy vision sometimes is like really annoying because it's like, not that I'm not in my own world, but it's like annoying like to look at things sometimes. But I'm not staring at walls. I don't go catatonic. I don't have images of trying to unalive myself anymore. So a lot with the proper treatment has helped. But yeah, it was horrendous, and that's why I do try to post things to like meet people in the mental health world because I'm like, well, maybe you should look into Lyme and co-infections. Like maybe it's causing you severe depression or severe anxiety or all that. The one thing I do still get is anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
That has not, that still comes on very strongly, full body anxiety. And so I'm not fully healed or in remission or anything. So the anxiety is the one thing that can still be very debilitating for me. But listen, I'll take that over everything that I experienced, especially the suicidal ideation. That was really scary. So yeah, anxiety is still a thing. But
so what do you do now for your anxiety? And that could be medication or coping skills, just kind of like a broad question.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm still on the Klonopin and the gabapentin. I know I eventually need to get off that, but while I'm still treating, I'm still on that. So those are the two medications for anxiety. I would say sometimes it's like full body. I mean, I'm sure Abby can relate that like I don't want to move from the couch to like do anything. I'm just stuck. I'm stuck sometimes in freeze mode. And at that point, I will like ask my husband for like an iPad. I'm sure it's so bad to do this, but ask my husband for an iPad to like play a game to at least keep my mind moving, to like move through the anxiety. I've started taking up crafting. I know you do crafting
I'm
too,
like,
but
yes, crafting is so healing, but yes, continue.
I've started taking up crafting. So, especially like the diamond, what is it called? The diamond, paint by numbers,
Mm-hmm.
which is super cheap. I think I got a giant one for $5 and it actually consumed me for like 2 weeks. So if I'm feeling anxiety and I'm just like sitting at a table, just like practicing like moving the diamonds. When I was at the mental health facility, they would do art class, and I'm not a good artist. They do charcoal art too. That was cool. But like art, and I'm like, I'm so horrible at art. I wish they had this diamond, this diamond crafting. I would have done this the whole time I was there. It's so cool. So that I highly recommend. So I will do that. I garden. So I will go outside and I will ground. I walk barefoot in my backyard, and I like to check on the garden, and, sitting outside just under the umbrella, like that's really healing for me. So, I have my higher dose PEMF mat. And whenever my nervous system is set off or I'm having a problem and I need to isolate, like sometimes it's still over stim. Like I have two kids. Now he's 6, she's about to be 3. Those ages, they're go, and input. And sometimes I'm like, I need to isolate, it's too much stim. So I go there and I lay on that mat, and that mat helps your body ground. And it helps me calm down. So that mat, or I also go to acupuncture. Acupuncture for me is like, I think, saved my life and my nervous system, partially, aside from all the medications and stuff. So I do have other things, or an Epsom salt bath, I don't know. Are there things that you do for anxiety that I'm not thinking of?
Let's think. I do the crafting. Okay, so I'll say like my crafting, like you would never, if you know me, this wouldn't like align with who you think I am, but like I go buy like fake flowers from like the dollar store or something, and then I'll just buy like a piece of wall art from the dollar store, and I'll just like decorate it with the fake flowers. I don't know why, but I'll put that on. I'll do that, and I'll put on like bilateral music, and I'll just like sit there and like so
I love it.
yeah, I like, and it doesn't feel like it would fit with my personality, but when I do it, I'm just like, it just feels good, and it doesn't matter what it looks like. So that's my side note on crafting. But like other things I do, like vagus nerve exercises, I'm actually looking at this on my desk. I'm going to pick it up real quick. But like this vagus nerve deck off of Amazon, we can put it in we'll put it in our Amazon storefront.
I think it is already.
Okay, well, this is, or it will be in our Amazon storefront.
Yeah.
It has recommendations like humming and things of that nature. Like I do some sort of a vagus nerve exercise every day, multiple times a day, especially in the evening when I'm sitting on my grounding mat, like winding down for the day. But I also just learned this really cool technique called the physiological sigh. And I learned that from the Huberman Lab podcast. Which
What is it?
I've mentioned him before, but so what it is, it's like you breathe in through the nose, and then when you get like your lungs feel kind of full, you take another like in, and then you breathe it out. And so I hope I'm like describing that right. I don't know if anyone can hear it, but it's like, I don't know if you could hear that.
You can. I feel like that I've heard that at Wim Hof, because I used to do Wim Hof breathing, and I feel like he does that too, because I would do like Wim Hof on YouTube, and he would do that too. It's like, breathe all the way in, now breathe again and hold it and then let it go.
Yeah,
and that's supposed to regulate, I think, too, right? Your nervous system.
Yeah, you like give it a big snort and and then you exhale. But also exhaling to like empty your lungs like as much as you can. Like is helpful for the nervous system. And then what is the other thing that I do that I dunk my face in ice water every morning, and I aim for two dunks, 20 seconds each. It's hard for me to get there, especially if the ice is really cold. But my goal is 2 dunks of 20 seconds each. And then if I work out, I'll like dunk my face one more time after I work out, just to kind of like reset the system. Yeah.
Do you feel that has helped you, the ice dunking?
I feel like it has. So when I was really struggling with my anxiety, I was still doing my cold plunges. Like I used to do cold plunges a lot, or cold, ice baths or whatever. And I was still doing that, and I would do it and it would just make things worse. And so I'm like, okay, what's a like a lesser version of this? And like the cold shower was still too much. So I said like, okay, I'll just dunk my face in ice water as like a gentler kind of reset than like dunking my whole body. And so I feel like that's been a nice middle ground for me. I feel like it has been helpful.
Yeah, I remember, I think it's awesome, and I know it's supposed to help reset your nervous system, but when I was at the mental health facility, they didn't let you drink water, but they would freeze fruit. They would freeze fruit, and then you take the fruit out, and like holding the fruit helps change the thought. Like if you're spiraling, holding the fruit change, because you're holding something freezing cold. So what are you focusing on? You're focusing on the freezing cold thing in your hand, or rubbing the fruit on your face, the freezing cold, something freezing cold on your face, because it will help stop the spiraling. Because a lot of what anxiety can be, now not always with Lyme, which can be full body and you're like, how do I even get rid of it? But sometimes it's from a spiral. But when you focus on the freezing cold item, or dunking your face in freezing cold water, you're thinking of the freezing cold water. You're not thinking, will I ever get better? You're like, oh my God, I'm freezing cold.
Yeah, you're
So
engaging other senses.
right. So it helps in that way too, because your body is now not focusing on that. And I think that for me too, as I've been healing, I couldn't do this when I was super sick. And I don't know if you feel the same way. I couldn't focus on getting out of those loops of how will I ever get better. But as I've been healing, I less likely engage in those loops and more engaged just in my everyday life. And even doing this podcast, it gives some, or whatever someone would engage in. Not everyone's doing a podcast, but takes you out of that, and you focus on something else, and your brain is focusing on something else, and like to take you out of like the anxiousness or nervousness around your impending health, or the impending doom of your health, and has you focus on something else that is greater purpose, or just being within your reality. And that I find to be calming of the nervous system, because it's like you're not like, oh my God. You're kind of like, well, I got to talk on this podcast, so let me think about that. Like it's like changing your thoughts, which again is really hard when you're very sick. But when you've reached a level of healing, finding a way to integrate more, right?
Yeah. I think that there's something so powerful about having things to look forward to, or feeling like you have a purpose. And so even if that
Yeah.
is hopping on here and talking, like that's still a purpose, and it's still a goal, and it still matters. Another thing I've been doing that I want to mention, two things actually, is like I made a TikTok about this recently, but the self holding or the self hug.
Oh yeah.
And I had never tried it until like the day I made that TikTok, because I was just like struggling, and I was like, what can I do? And I sat down and I did that self hug routine. And I just was like, whoa, like that made such a big difference. So I would definitely recommend like a self hug or a self holding. And then I do like somatic shaking sometimes too. So if I'm feeling kind of like dysregulated or like pent up sort of, I will literally like stand there and like shake, like you know how a dog shakes, and I feel like I'm
Yeah.
shaking off the stress like my dog.
Shake it off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like I'll like move my head, and like I'll like make noises, and like by the end of it I'm laughing because it's fun and it feels like a good release. So like I think that there's a huge part of it that's like the somatic stuff, and the kind of like safe self-touching or safe self-regulating like is also very important, which is something, I think that we can touch on or dive into deeper. But I think there's just so many things that we can do to regulate the nervous system. And the full body anxiety is so hard. I'm trying to be mindful of how to word this. I made a video about this recently as well, but typically like the adrenaline dumps last 90 seconds. And so if you can ride that 90 seconds and not get stuck spiraling, not get stuck with the what if it never ends, what if it gets worse, what if I don't get better, what if, just knowing like adrenaline is dumping, this typically is going to last about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, right? Like I'm not telling you it's going to
Yeah.
last exactly 90 seconds, but we know adrenaline comes and it goes, and it typically is about 90 seconds. If we can just know we have to ride out those 90 seconds, we don't have to attach a thought to it. We don't have to attach a predicted outcome, a preconceived notion, nothing. We can just know like, I have to ride this 90 seconds. I have to ride this adrenaline dump. And then I can move forward and my body will kind of recalibrate and know it's safe. Like knowing that's temporary, sometimes it's also very helpful. Like you don't have to flee, you don't have to attach narrative to it. You can just know that the adrenaline's going to spike and it is going to go away.
So so sitting with it, knowing that it's 90 seconds, and in 90 seconds it's going to pass, and you could try to move forward from it.
Right. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I don't like, I wouldn't sit there and time it, because there's a chance like maybe your adrenaline lasts 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Maybe mine is only like 70 seconds. I don't know. Right. But I would say like, I haven't had a large adrenaline attack recently, but the research I've been doing, the things I've been reading, I would say like if I did have a large adrenaline dump, I would say I would try to tell myself something like, I know that in about 2 minutes, this will pass. I know that I am safe. I don't have to attach a narrative. I don't have to attach, again, like a predetermined outcome. I know that the adrenaline will peak and it will pass.
And is that, I just don't know the science behind it. The adrenaline dumping, is that just a physiological thing that occurs, or is that because of something you ate, or is that like, do we know what, or that just happens? That's like a natural occurring thing that will happen in the body. I don't know.
My guess, and from my lived experience, would be somehow or another, the nervous system has perceived a threat. So whether it's the peppermint patties I ate last night, right? And I can say like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have had sugar. Or whether it's the fact that maybe it's something subconscious. My nervous system is just like, oh, threat. You don't have to name it, but we feel it. And
Got
the
it.
adrenaline is coming and it's going to go. Or I can say
Got
like
it.
the direct trigger was maybe I was doing exposure therapy and I was outside of my window of tolerance, right? Again, it was
Got it.
something I ate. Maybe it was a stressor. So I think it can be a mix of like just something your nervous system does while it's recalibrating or while it's dysregulated, or it can be caused by a direct trigger.
Ah, okay. All right. That makes sense. That's, I mean, because it could be a lot of things. But I think when you have Lyme, co-infections, and all that, you feel it more intensely, or you feel it more deeply, because you're just dysregulated in general. So you're, yeah, trying to sit with that. But that makes a lot of sense.
So, so, um, we're going to wrap up this part of this mental health series. We're going to circle back where I'm going to share a bit of my story, my mental health journey with Lyme disease, co-infections, and mold toxicity, which for me has peaked in this past year. And but Chrissy, and I want to say, if you could give advice to anybody who feels like they can relate to your journey, anybody who feels like this episode or your story spoke to them, anybody who feels like they're walking a parallel path, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I hope I gave nuggets of kind of advice throughout what had happened to me with different medications and how everything spiraled so quickly. But I think the main theme through all of it is a twofold. One is to trust your gut always, but two is to advocate for yourself, because you're trusting your gut. So throughout this whole situation, I felt when I had that SSRI reaction that it was the SSRI, even though everyone's like, no, it's not. No, me choosing to detox off of it, I regained my walking. Me feeling, oh, I think there's Epstein-Barr, and going to that naturopath's office, who then helped me figure out it could be Lyme and co-infections. Me going to finding a psychiatrist and an LLMD, and initially being helped, but then ultimately feeling gaslit, which led me to find other doctors who actually gave me life-saving treatment and didn't gaslight me. Me going to the mental health facility, while it was hard leaving my children, but then ultimately getting on the right medication to help me actually be able to move through this unfortunate disease that has affected my brain and my nervous system. Like if I didn't have the right prescriptions, what would have happened to me? So I always think it's like, you just have to keep advocating and trust your gut, because your gut's not going to steer you the wrong way. You may have to break up with some doctors. You may have to decide that one hospital is not serving you. You need to go to another hospital. You may understand that this medication is harming you. It's doing more harm than good. So like, always trusting your gut that like if this does not feel right, you need to move to somewhere else. You need to try a new angle. Like the healing is there for you. The ability to get to the next level in your health is there for you. But if you stay stuck in that same place because you're just trusting that one doctor, you may not get better, because while they may have good intentions, they may not be the right person for you, or they may not be giving you the right medication that's going to get you to the next place. And so, yeah, don't stop advocating. You need to keep fighting and not stop advocating for yourself. And always remember that your intuition will never guide you to the wrong place.
I love that. I love that so much. And I just want to say, like, I hear you saying, like, don't stop. Like, even if you don't have Lyme and co-infections, your health and your mental health still matter. And you still deserve to feel heard and be heard and taken seriously. And so I think that's a super important piece to take with you, to take for any of us to take with us. Like, no matter what, you deserve to be heard and to be taken seriously. And yeah, I feel like that's a good place to end. Like, we all deserve it. We don't deserve to be gaslit. And so I'm glad that you didn't stop. I'm glad that you didn't give up. And I'm happy that, I mean, I'm happy you're here today, but I'm happy we're friends, and I have never heard your story in so much depth. And so I'm so grateful that you were willing to share it today.
For sure. And I do hope it helps someone out there, especially if you're struggling with your mental health. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and just don't give up.
Thank you. As a
Thanks,
reminder,
Abby.
if you, the listener, are experiencing a mental health emergency, increased mental health symptoms, or a crisis, we encourage you to go to your local emergency room, call 911, or call 988. And we thank you for listening.